First, I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen here for a second, and then I want to share something and show you something. this comes from this comes from Robert Kiyosaki's book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. And if you're not familiar with it, it was kind of the sequel to Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it's just one of those things when you write a book, there's a lot of information that may not get used in the book. And then it was enough to start the second book, Cash Flow Quadrant, where it takes a little deeper dives. And so the first thing you want to look at is you have employee, right? And so and this is the way. So you have the left side of the quadrant, employee, self-employed, the right side, business owner, and then investor. So we'll do a little deeper dive on some of that. So let's get to the next, not that slide. That's, I got them out of order. So let's look at an employee. So what is an employee, right? So an employee has a job, right? That's somebody that has a job. What are some of their characteristic traits, right? Security. They like the security of it. Now, this may seem a little like, what's he talking about? It'll build on itself and you'll understand. So they like the security, the steady paycheck, right? So, but it's very limited, right? I mean, it's only limited to like the amount of hours you can work. If you become way more efficient, you can get a raise, but then the company, it's the company's benefits. So, but one of the things I teach, even if you're an employee, think of yourself as a self-employed, improve yourself, and excuse me, and then if you don't get raises by dramatically increasing your production, then go look for another company. So, but anyway, that's enough on that, right? So, but typically an employee has a low tolerance of risk, right? For risk, that's why they like the steady paycheck, the security, right? So the next one is, they live and work at the whims of another person, right? So lives and works at the whims of another. So, and that's it. I mean, so when you're an employee, you serve at the leisure of other people. And, and that's the way it is. Now, a good company makes it a win-win for everybody, right? So, but there are people, that's just who they are, and they're okay with that. So let's look at the next one, self-employed, right? So self-employed, oh, that was supposed to be not one click, but they own a job. Rather than see employee has a job, where self-employed owns a job. See, and there's a little difference there. But typically a professional, doctors, lawyers, that type of stuff, right? Real estate professionals, mortgage professionals. So they like the freedom, the control that they have, right? They want to control their time. They like the freedom to say, hey, if I want to take a month off, I'm going to take a month off. But they also know the consequence that if they take a month off, they're not going to make any money. But they can make enough money. If you do this right, you can make enough money in 10 months to be able to take 2 months off a year if you wanted to. Now, I mean, we'll talk about the challenges of if you took 2 months off at once, you'd have a hard time coming back and starting over. But so that's a different conversation, right? So self-employed has a little more tolerance for risk, So now the next one is they have high standards. Not saying it's employees don't have high standards, but self-employed, they have high standards to where it's almost to their detriment, right? They're perfectionists, right? The standard makes it hard for them to delegate. That's the problem, right? Self-employed says, I can't get anybody to do it right. I'll do it myself, right? So they don't like employees because nobody does it as well as them, right? That's what I have in my notes, right? So they wind up not liking employees, right? And that's like, okay. So now let's look at the right side of the quadrant. So the right side of the quadrant is a business owner. So when you're a business owner, you are, right? So a business owner owns a system that makes money when they aren't working. See the fundamental difference between that and a self-employed? So when you're self-employed, right? You're self-employed, you own a system, right? And that's different. That's a difference than owning a job. So, because when you own a job, you have to do the work, right? When you own a bit, not saying I don't work because I own a business. I mean, let's not even go there. I mean, I work a lot and I work hard and I'm always working to better the systems to help you increase your revenue because, all ships rise with the tide, right? So my goal is to create systems for you to do better so then everybody does better. The company does better as a result. So, but business owners know they need people. They know they need people, right? So, whereas in the self-employed, they're perfectionists. I can't find anybody to do it right. I'm going to do it myself. Where seeing a business owner says, why do that when you can get somebody else to do it? Right? Does that make sense? They also like control, right? Good economy, bad economy, they can adjust. You could be an employee of a company, and if the leadership doesn't know how to adjust with the economy, I mean, it could be, a month and you're out of a job because they failed the whole company and everybody went under. Excuse me. So that, where if you own the business, then you can make the adjustments. And that's why, and that's also a good argument for some of the smaller size companies versus the large conglomerates, because the large conglomerates just has way too many people to make decisions, to make fast decisions. So, you know, um, like if you notice that, you know, when the virus shutdown happened, I went into high gear. I immediately, there was no, I got to run it by my supervisor. I got to get a permission from the board of directors. Even an emergency meeting that may take a week to happen. I mean, that stuff. I mean, I already knew what was happening. So I just immediately went into gear, and I shifted gears and I just started helping our agents in different ways to match what was going on. Where most of the big companies and franchise types, they're just, it took them a month to figure out what happened. We were already, if you saw that post on our Facebook group, that the real estate was, let's see, it was down 28%, right? Down 28% this April compared to last April. But what's interesting was our volume was up 25% this April compared to last April. So that's one of the advantages of a smaller business, right? Yeah, you make less money than a giant conglomerate. I get that. But, you know, they're more vulnerable in certain situations where we're nimble. We can adjust and fight, whatever, how we have to. Right. So the next thing is, what's the next? Oh yeah. The next one in the cash flow quadrant is the investor. So remember on the left side, you had um, employee and self-employed, and the right side you have business owner, and then on the bottom right quadrant you have investor. So an investor says they have the highest financial education of the quadrant, right? So think about that. So because what are they doing? They like to use other people's money, right? OPM, if you never heard that expression. And so, you know, somebody that's flipping houses, right? They're an investor. If they're buying houses and they're using other people's money, sometimes they have their own cash. But, if you have your own cash, I mean, you have to have a boatload to do a lot of projects. But if you have other people's money, you can do multiple projects at once and actually make more money. Yeah, you would get to keep the interest if you used your own money, but you'd be limited. So they use assets to generate income. So think about that. An investor puts their time, energy, and resources into an asset that generates income. Got it? And then what they do with that income is they acquire more assets that generates more income, and they just keep collecting and collecting assets. So if you think about it, so if you look so if you visualize, let's get back to the quadrant again, right? So you have the quadrant. So investors, and they invest in businesses, businesses owners hire self-employed, self-employed hire employees, or business owners hire these guys here. Most agents, their mind is between these two, employee and self-employed. I shouldn't say most. Let's put it, some agents they struggle between the two, being an employee and self-employed, right? They think like an employee, but they want the freedom of self-employed. And that's pretty much a disastrous recipe, right? Because if this person needs that security, they need someone guiding the ship, but now they have the freedom to not do it, to not be even on the ship. Where you need to graduate full. If you're struggling between these two, you really need to graduate all the way to this. Then the second group of agents are usually struggling between these two positions at some point or another. They're quasi running a business, but they have that self-employed, I might as well do it myself type thing going on, right? And so, and that's where they struggle, right? So that's a struggle for those guys. So to truly get to the next level, if you're in this, struggling between these two, to truly get to the next level, you're going to have to just get over here. You're not going to get to the next level here. Now, don't get me wrong. You can make a lot of money over here. Don't get me wrong. You can make a lot of money over here. There are agents that are making $1 million a year. But if they stop working, they stop making money. There's no system to generate revenue while they're not working. See, that's the fundamental difference. But I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I mean, if you're making $400, $500, $600 million a year, man, that's freaking awesome. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, right? The only thing better is making that kind of money without work. So, anyway, to get to the really next level, you need to go here. And sometimes you need the investor to run this. But if you're not using investors, which I don't have investors in the company, and that's why I think we have some slower growth, where, if I had a $500,000, I think I could take this company to levels that are, that it would take 10 years to get there, where I could probably get us there in a year and a half. So, but I would be holding to somebody else, and not so excited about that idea. So anyway, so the next, so let unshare my screen. So the next item is I want to talk about. So now that you understand how cash flow works, right? And you have to do a self-examination of where you are. So are you struggling between employee and self-employed? Or are you struggling between self-employed and a business owner, right? Where are you struggling? And so, and if you're struggling between business owner and investor, well, that's a better place to be. The goal of this conversation is to explain how doing things yourself is killing you, because I want you to understand. So in order to have systems that generate income while you're not working, then it requires other people. Bill Gates said, if you want to become a billionaire, you have to create millionaires. So in other words, you have to create a bunch of people, wealth underneath you, so that everything rises up. Like I said, all ships rise in the tide. So, that's kind of the deal there. So, excuse me. Let's see, I need to get my notes, back to my notes. So the next thing I want to talk about is it's the 4 tasks of a real estate agent, right? The 4 tasks of a real estate agent is that number 1 is the lead generate, prospect or lead generate, some form of getting business into the company. That's like the number 1 priority, right? Then the second task of a lead of a real estate agent is to lead follow up, right? So, I mean, so if you think about how important leads are, it's 50% of everything you're supposed to do. And then the whole purpose of doing that is for the next item is really to get appointments. So your first item is lead generate. Second item is lead follow-up. Your third one is to go on appointments, right? And the appointments are broken down into 3 types of appointments. So A, B, and C, right? So we got 1, 2, 3 and 4 items, but number 3 is broken down into A, B, C. So number 3 is go on a listing appointment. That's your highest priority, right? So it was said that listings are the gift of the real estate gods. And what do I mean by that? So think about this. If you have a bunch of buyers, are sellers going to call you? Think about that. If you have a boatload of buyers, are sellers going to call you? The answer is no. So until we figure out how to make sellers contact us to get in touch with our buyers, then listings are where it's at. Because if you have listings, buyers will contact you. It's not the other way around, right? If you have buyers, sellers aren't going to contact you. But if you have listings, then buyers will contact you, period. So buyers are a natural byproduct of listings. Think about that. If you focus all your energy on listings, you'll get buyers. Now let's be clear on that though. Sellers can be more confrontational. And that's why not too many agents like that arena, because they can be more confrontational, right? So, and not many people can handle that. And they don't like that kind of direct confrontation, if you will. So the second type of appointment is a buyer listing appointment, right? You meet with a buyer orientation, whatever you want to call it. You meet with a buyer, and then you have the buyer, you go through everything, you explain your process and have them sign a buyer agency contract. That's why I call it a buyer listing appointment, because it's like you're meeting with them to sign an agency contract. You're listing them, as if you will, right? And then so the third type of appointment is showing appointments, right? So those are the 3 types of appointments. So let's backtrack on that. So number 1 item is prospecting, lead generation, whatever you want to call it. And then number 2 is lead follow-up, right? You want to follow up on those leads. And the reason you're generating leads and following up on them leads is to set appointments. And then the 3 types of appointments are listing appointment, buyer listing appointment, showing appointments. And then the 4th item is negotiate contracts, okay? Negotiate the contract between the buyer and the seller. So, and then of course you're negotiating a contract between yourself and the seller as far as commissions go, but you're also negotiating a contract between the buyer and the seller. That's really the money. That's what they're really hiring us to do. So, and the rest of it can be delegated. The rest can all be delegated. Think about that. So now when you get to that level, you're inches away from going into business. So right now, if you're not doing it this way, where if you're doing all the other tasks as well, then you have to go through getting rid of all the other tasks that you're doing to reach this level, because the next step is owning a business. Because you can delegate these items too, but in order to get there, you need to be extremely efficient and treating everything else like a business until you can no longer, you maximized all this. You cannot possibly generate another lead. You cannot possibly go on another appointment to where you start bringing in other agents to work inside your organization. So, the other option is just go open up a brokerage and hire agents. So, and so anyway, so that's kind of the thing of a real estate agent. So let's move on. Let's see. Nope. So let's talk about the things that let's look at the things you shouldn't be doing. That's what my notes have, right? You shouldn't be doing transaction coordinating. You shouldn't be putting signs in the yard. You shouldn't be taking photos, right? You shouldn't be scheduling showing appointments on your listings. You just shouldn't be doing that. That's just not, by doing those tasks, you're taking your time away from you're taking your time away from, income generating activities. And let me go through that real quickly with you. I'm going to do some math. You're not going to be able to see my calculator, but I'm going to pull a calculator in front of the screen. Let's assume we work 48 weeks, right? There's between holidays, vacation, and education. You're going to not work 4 weeks. So you're going to work 48 weeks. So, and let's say you're really cranking it out and you're working 50 hours a week. Now, there aren't many agents that actually work 50 hours a week. There aren't many that work 40 hours a week. They may be, at their job 40 hours a week. They're not working 40 hours a week. I can promise you that. So if they were, they'd be making a lot of money. So let's just work on the assumption you're working 48 weeks at 50 hours, right? So that's 2,400 hours in a year, which is actually more hours than if you work 52 weeks at 40 hours, right? So they only worked 2,080. So you're going to work 2,400 hours in less time than they work in 52 weeks, right? Think about that. Or at least that's what they get paid for if they got paid vacations, right? So you have 2,400, right? So let's say you're closing, say, 20 transactions, right? And your average commission is, say, $10,000, which is not a lot of money because, it's because let me rephrase that. That's a lot of money, but it's not that hard to do because of the price points. The median price is around 400 grand in Salt Lake County. So if you're, even at 2.5%, the median price range is going to give you $10,000 a transaction. So if you're doing 350 at 3%, you're still getting 10,000. So if you're doing 20 transactions at $10,000 each, that's 200 grand. So if you take 200,000 and divide that by the $2,400, 2,400 hours, that's $83 an hour. You got that? That's $83 an hour. You can't afford to hire you to do things like transaction coordinating, putting signs in the yard, taking photos, scheduling appointments, that kind of stuff. You need to delegate that out. Now, as far as lead generation, can you delegate that out? And yeah, let's qualify that statement though. Can you delegate the authority and the responsibility of lead generating? No. That is your job as an agent. In other words, you need to know what kind of lead generating you want to be doing. You need to know that if you're spending money on advertising to generate inbound calls, you need to be well aware what's working and what's not working. You just can't delegate that out to somebody and say, hey, run me some ads, because if they really knew how to do all that in a high level, there's very few people that make a business out of that. Kevin Smullen's one of them, where he's actually made a business out of knowing what's working and what's not working, right? So, but if you're just going to go hire somebody, well, then you need to be clear on what it is you want done and then train them and delegate them to do specifically what you want done, not allowing them to just be in charge of everything. They can be in charge of getting it done, but not in charge of what gets done. If that makes sense, right? So, and I've seen that mistake happen many times where they just hire an assistant. The assistant doesn't know. They're like, I don't, I'm just running an ad, So, and then things like photography, right? If you're going to take your time, drive 20, 30 minutes, spend 20, 30 minutes at the property, drive 20, 30 minutes back, that's an hour and a half. Then you got to screw around with the photos, getting them prepped and, picking out, you got to know. So you're about 2 hours into that. So based on the math we're doing, so that's times 2, that's 160. So rounded up to $167. So where you could delegate it out for 75 to $100. So you could see where if you spent your time just lead generating, if you spend 2 hours on the phone looking for business, you'd make more than $166. Come on. Hello. So, and the 2,400 hours, the $83 an hour, That's just based on doing all of your items. If you just broke down your lead generating hours, right? Let's do some math on that. Like I said, you can't see my calculator, but let's say if you did, let's say you did 3 hours a day. So, so you do 48 weeks times 5 days. That's 240 hours times 3. That's 720 hours. Now, if you took the $200,000 and divided by 720 hours, now your prospecting time is worth $277 an hour. You cannot afford to go to the dry cleaners. You get that? So you have to shift your mind to that in order to go to the next level. If you're DIY, if you're doing everything yourself, you're going to be limited to what you can do because there's only so many hours a day. So if you can make $200 an hour, 250 bucks an hour for just lead generating, why wouldn't you do more of that? I mean, eventually you can hire a listing agent. What if you lead generated, like 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day? Holy crap. Right? I mean, think about the money you can make. I mean, if you went, so what, 48 times 5, that's the days. And if you times that by, say, 5 hours, and then that's 1,200, you times that by 277 back. I mean, that takes you up to 332,000. So, I mean, you just make, a lot more money by just doing the right things and delegating out the things that aren't revenue generating. Right? Remember, there's always income and expenses, right? Income and expense. So you should only be working on the income side, right? And then because, we tend not to think of our own time as an expense in the company, so you can't afford you. So if you're paying yourself $277 an hour to do things that you could delegate for $25 to $50 an hour, you're losing money because you're paying out more than's coming in eventually. So I hope that makes sense. I know I just went on a long rant, but any thoughts, questions, concerns, hallucinations here?
Thought you did a really good job, Rob.
Oh, okay. So let's get to questions. What do we got? I mean, we got you folks on the call. What do you want to know based on what I excuse me, based on the items we just told? So any ideas? Excuse me. So, well, if we don't have any, then let's see what else I have. Well, then your goal, like I said, your goal is to go from the self-employed, either from, the employee to self-employed, get fully over to self-employed, then work your way over to business owner. If you're teetering between self-employed and business owner, then your goal is to, get up to the business owner side of the thing and run your job, run your practice like a business, right? X amount of this, X amount of that, and just treat it like a business. So anyway, those are
I think one of the most important things that I did as we progressed in becoming business owners and self-employed was to get all of my sign work and photography. We used to do our own photography, and that was a pain in the rear because then I had to spend hours on.
right.
Not a very good photographer. He thinks he is, but he isn't.
Right, right.
Would go in and just take a million pictures, and then it would take me 6 hours to go through them and put them into Photoshop and redo them and get them ready to put up on the MLS. And that just was a total waste of my time where I could have been doing something else.
Right,
So
generating more business.
yeah. And so when we finally went to professional photography and had someone else putting our signs up, we got a lot more time on our hands to do the things that we were supposed to be doing.
That generate income, right?
Yeah.
So, and here's another thing: the research and the statistics has proven that quality photos actually generate more leads.
Absolutely.
I mean, the stats have proven it over and over and over. And the same thing with signs. Nothing like a crooked sign. You ever drive by a listing, signs hanging, post is crooked. I mean, like, so that type of stuff, when delegated out, is, you get a good quality sign post, a good quality sign, make sure it's secure, nice. I mean, it just looks professional. Good quality photos.
Right.
Because remember,
Not
the
the yard
other,
signs, not the little ones
no,
on
not
the,
those little ones that
yeah,
are a couple feet tall. No, no. That's my mind is that is so lack of lack of professionalism that it just like blows my mind. I mean, here you are, you got a $400,000 listing, you got a chance to make between $12,000 and $24,000, and you're out there screwing around with a little sign. I mean, that's embarrassing. And then see, and that's a DIY mindset, right? Where
right.
if you actually understood that when you hire professionals to do things, well, a couple things. Number one, if you're doing it yourself, it's usually to save money, right? Well, based on the math I just explained to you, you're not saving any money. You're costing your company money by doing it yourself. Because, like Debbie said, it took her hours to where somebody else could have done it. It was a click, click. The photos show up. You put them in the order you want, suck them into the MLS, and done. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
how many, that's a lot of work. I mean, that's a lot of time saved. I mean, we talked about, maybe an hour and a half just to get the photos. Then if you got to screw around with them for another hour, even 2 hours, I mean, that's just way too much time where you could have just click, and then the photos show up in your inbox.
Mm-hmm. Plus, the
Professionally
guy,
done.
if there's something wrong with the photos, you just hand them
Yeah.
back to the guy and he fixes them.
Yeah. My guy, I mean, he'll usually fix them before he sends them over
Yeah.
because he knows he's got to. That's his business. But they don't have as many photos that need any kind of fixing. They know how to take photos
Right.
and they
Exactly.
have the equipment.
Professional always knows a lot better, and the lighting
Right.
is always better too.
Right. And they just have good equipment. I mean, the
Yeah.
equipment helps. So, but what happens in a DIY mindset is, so let me back that up. So we as real estate professionals, we believe we should be hiring, that sellers and buyers should hire a professional, right? But if you don't believe that you should be hiring a professional to take those photos, hire a professional to do your taxes, hire professionals to put up signs, and hire professionals to manage your files, hire professionals to schedule showings. If you don't believe that you should be doing that, you should hire professionals, how can you convince a seller to hire a professional real estate agent or to think you have value? Because, see, you don't value professionals, which means you're only going to attract into your life people that don't value professionals. Is that what you want? I mean, who would want that? I mean, that's crazy. So start behaving like someone that values professionals. And then when you do, you will attract people that value professionals.
That can also, when you're talking to people and you're talking to prospects, that's one thing that you should probably bring up to them is the fact that you have a team
Systems.
of
Right.
professionals and
Right.
you have a system so that, A, the pictures get taken, B, the
Right.
sign gets put up, C, you put up whatever web pages and all of that kind of stuff that you're going to do. And all of this stuff needs to be done before you put it on the MLS. And
Right.
if you have a system like that where it just goes into production whenever you get a new signing, then you can do a lot more business, number one, and number two, it looks better for you.
Right.
You look like the professional.
Right. Well, and that professionalism will, because remember, when you list a property, the other potential sellers in the area are watching
Exactly.
you. So we had one of our agents, I had this conversation with kind of privately, and this particular agent listened to me, did a bang up job, hired a professional, hired a signpost where they were doing all their own before, but this one happened to have like a $500,000 or $600,000 listing. So the agent listened to me. Lo and behold, did an open house, had a big open house where they mailed the postcards, they door knocked, they did a Facebook ad. And at their open house, they picked up a seller buyer. They didn't sell the house to that buyer, but they picked up a couple that was selling like a $350,000 or $400,000 house and buying a $550,000, $600,000 house. So they went out and picked up another like close to $1 million worth of business just by following that kind of guidelines, because the other seller buyer that was going through their open house saw everything they did and said, "You're the agent we want to hire." So
Right. Yeah, I think Kevin Smullen put it really, really well too when he was talking to us a few weeks back about what you're actually advertising for. When you're advertising a house, you're advertising to other sellers that this is what you do. You're auditioning rather
right,
than advertising the listing, because the listing's going to get sold,
right,
especially in this market.
right.
What you're
If
doing
it's
the
not so, yeah,
marketing for is for other sellers.
right. So when you're advertising a listing for, so his whole listing marketing strategy starts out with, just listed, open house, under contract, just sold, all that kind of stuff, right? So
Yeah, and
in
it's
to
marketed
the
to
same
a
group of
custom
people,
audience.
right, right. So you're fishing for more sellers.
Yeah, exactly.
So because remember, you can manage 10 sellers with about the same energy as like say 4 buyers. Think about that, right? So and
Or less, depending on the buyers.
right, right. But then think about this though, and then how many of the sellers have to buy something else, right?
That's true.
I mean, to sell 20 houses, I mean, all you need to get are 10 sellable listings. 5 of them are going to buy something else. That's 15. And then if you're marketing 10 listings throughout the course of the year, you're going to pick up 5 buyers through
And if
referral.
you're not doing it right.
Exactly. So think about that. To do 20 transactions is only really lead generating and marketing to pick up 10 sellable listings. So that's pretty it's not hard. It's not hard. But keep in mind, this is a highly competitive business, right? When you got 10,000 agents and there's only 3,000 listings, I mean, you got some serious competition.
That's why it's so important to put your systems together and act like a true professional rather than
Right,
I'm just going to put a sign in your yard and hope it sells.
right. What they call the 4 Ps, right? Put it in the MLS, put a sign in the yard, put it in the MLS, put an ad in the paper, and pray. So, but the truth is, if it's priced properly, it's going to sell.
Right.
Period. If it's a
You're
little
doing the
overpriced,
marketing
it'll
to
sell in 4 weeks.
get other sellers to audition to other sellers.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly how it is. So anyway, thoughts, questions, concerns, hallucinations. So, so one of the things we've done here at Aubrey and Associates is we set up systems for you, right, to get you to the point where you can do 20, 30 deals without ever hiring an assistant, right? Full-time assistant on your staff. So because you can, we have the transaction coordinator, you don't have to do that. And when I coach agents, they're like, well, when I do a little more business, I'll hire a transaction coordinator. I'm like, no, when you hire a transaction coordinator, you'll start doing more business. Do you get that? Because you're not hiring one. You're not saving money. You're not saving money. You're taking away from lead generating activities. That's what you're doing. And when you take away from lead generating activities, that costs you big money. Crap. Forgot to put my phone on mute. So do you get that? I hope you get that, boys and girls. So delegate. I mean, so we have a transaction coordinator. We do some of the heavy lifting on your marketing that you can outsource to companies to do like social media type marketing. So, where you don't need to hire a full-time staff person, you can outsource that. You can outsource, you can spend a little money. We have the free Showing Time app for the texting version. But if you spend a little bit of money, you can
That is
have,
worth it.
yeah,
To get the full-blown edition, because then you don't have to worry
show,
about whether your seller is getting the text or whatever.
right. If you're out on an appointment and somebody's trying, hey, somebody's driving by your listing, they're looking at the house down the street. Yours is maybe 10 grand more than what they were searching for. But they can certainly afford it. And, they're trying to get a hold of you and get in, and you're not able to get, back to them for a couple hours. I mean, they were there, they were in the neighborhood. They're hot to trot. So, and you just have to be prepared in today's climate. Well, and I've been saying that for years. I mean, ever since signs and cell phones, when would you like to see it? Well, I'm in the driveway. So, so, that kind of, so you just need to delegate out the Showing Time. It's already free for the basic version, a little more money, and you have high. And again, these are things you can be telling a seller. So look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're hiring a business and a set of systems. In other words, we use a showing service so that we can guarantee that somebody is always available to answer the calls when somebody wants to see your listing. I have someone that does our paperwork to make sure everything's done right. We have professional photographers because the statistics show that we get more phone calls on your listing when we have better photography. You get, so, and all that equates to, netting you more money, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. And then, that's what you want, isn't it? So, so think about that, boys and girls. Stop. I always say, don't FSBO your taxes, right? If you're doing your own taxes, you got a serious mental handicap, in my opinion. Unless you have a degree in accounting, you shouldn't be doing it. And not even accounting as much as CPA. Accounting is one thing, but tax law is another. Just like I believe you should hire an accountant. I mean, I hire cleaners, I hire window cleaners to come clean my windows. I don't cut my grass, I don't shovel my sidewalk. Now that Costco delivers, are you freaking kidding me? I'm having a ball. I just get online, click, click. An hour later, Costco's knocking on my door with boxes of food.
Hey, that's one thing that COVID has done for us all.
Yeah.
Learn how to
Well,
get things delivered.
right. I mean, it cost me $20 yesterday, $21 to have my food delivered. Well, think about how much time it would take me. It would take me a half hour to get over to Costco, maybe 20 minutes, because I fly down the highway. And then, then you're inside Costco. How long you're in there, going inside Costco, to save money, and you walk out with 3 carts later, you just spent $600. You're like, huh, I didn't save a whole lot of money there, did I? So, and then you got to come back and all that kind of stuff. So, where $20, $21, I'm like, are you kidding me? If you save me, if you save me an hour or more than an hour, I'm like, that's well worth $20.
Yeah, it's how much is your time worth?
And right. And, and you're helping the economy, So anyway, you're putting other guys to work. I know Costco's a big business, but they employ a lot of people. So, but anyway, that's what I got. So, if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the call, end the meeting. I always say call, but end the meeting. And then, so if not, you guys have an amazing day.
Okay. And
Thanks,
we're
bud.
ending the meeting. Thanks, everybody.